I'd now like to introduce Dr. Henning Melber, who has a variety of hats, including being the Director Emeritus of the Hammarskjöld Foundation, also a Senior Fellow here at the Institute of Commonwealth Studies, who will talk about Sweden's policy change over time. Please, Henning.
Thank you very much, Kingston, and good day to all of you in this room and online, sharing the commitment to seek the truth we are denied to find out despite our efforts. It's my privilege to share with you a significant shift of history in the Swedish policy since the days when the plane crashed, which, due to this shift in policy, somehow facilitated a context allowing us to meet today and continue the search for truth. And allow me to acknowledge the presence of Frida Wallin as the first secretary of the Swedish Embassy, underlining the continued Swedish commitment in our efforts to search the truth. Let me start with what happened from a Swedish point of view after the plane crash in 1961. And I benefit very much from the research undertaken by the Norwegian researcher Hans Christian Simonsen and the eminent person Mattias Mossberg, appointed upon request of the United Nations by the Swedish government. They both looked into significant changes of the initial Swedish investigations by a commission appointed by the government in late 1961. This special working group was tasked, I quote, to review and evaluate the work of the other, meaning the Rhodesian and United Nations investigations, end of the quote. Presenting its report the same day as the United Nations investigation, on the 2nd of May 1962, the working group was less open towards the cause of the crash by declaring external influence as the least likely cause. In contrast to the UN report, which categorically found no indications for a pilot error, the Swedish report suggested that no direct evidence existed. This deviated from earlier interim statements by members of that working group who had been casting doubt on a mere accident. As Mattias Mossberg, the eminent person appointed by the Swedish government, upon the request of Judge Ottman, observed in his report, it is unclear why the Swedish report was placing itself, in a sense, closer to the two Rhodesian investigations than to the UN Commission. The fact remains that as from that moment in time, for 30 years, the Swedish position was a disinterest in taking matters any further. Then in 1992, media reports drew attention to new accusations that the plane crash was the result of an assassination plot. Due to this widely reported media coverage, the Swedish government appointed Ambassador Bengt Röscher, who in 1961 was in the Congo, to verify the accusations. He published his findings on 4th March 1993, and he recommended in the main that the case should rest and not be reopened. Another 20 years passed without any Swedish interest in reopening the case. It was thanks to Susan Williams' book, 50 years after the plane crash, who killed Hammarskjöld, raising significant questions and doubts, that a private initiative formed a so-called enabling committee. It tasked 4 independent legal experts under the leadership of Sir Stephen, and we were able to listen to his summary on what happened then, to explore the probative value of the new evidence presented. Its report was submitted to the UN Under-Secretary General Jan Eliasson in September 2013. And we will have the privilege to listen to Jan later this morning when he is addressing us from Sweden. In 2014, after scrutinizing the report of the Independent Commission, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon in March proposed to the General Assembly to pursue matters further. This recommendation was in line with the initial United Nations General Assembly Resolution 1759 of 26 October 1962, which explicitly stated, I quote, "to inform the General Assembly of any new evidence which may come to his," meaning the United Nations Secretary General's, "attention," end of quote. But there was a dilemma. No UN member state would show official support unless the Swedish permanent mission would take a lead. The Swedish government, however, was still not inclined to reopen the matter. That was in mid-2014. But general elections in Sweden in September 2014 led to a change in government. While, if I may add a bit flippantly, luckily so, the agenda item at the General Assembly had been rescheduled several times and was postponed until December, which created a window of opportunity. And on 15th December 2014, Ambassador Per Töresson introduced a Swedish draft resolution calling for new investigations by an independent panel of experts. This draft resolution was co-sponsored by 20 member states and adopted by consensus on 29th of December. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon established on 16th March 2015 a panel of 3 experts to verify the independent commission's findings. Headed by the former Chief Justice of Tanzania, Mohamed Chande Othman, its report confirmed sufficient credibility to the Commission's conclusions. As a result, in 2016, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon called on the General Assembly to appoint an eminent person to review all new information. Thanks to another resolution submitted by Sweden and co-sponsored by 74 member states, adopted on 29th December, the Secretary General was tasked to make such an appointment. Secretary General Antonio Guterres did so when he appointed on 8th February 2017 Justice Othman as eminent person tasked with further investigations. His first report, submitted on 24th July 2017, was circulated on 5th September. It concludes that it seems almost certain that further relevant information in the possession of member states has not yet been disclosed. He recommends the further pursuance of matters by an eminent person and that relevant member states provide access to their archives to eminent persons appointed by these. Sweden submitted another draft resolution supported now by 70 member states on 28th November. Adopted on 24th December 2017 without a vote, Judge Ottman was reappointed. Justice Ottman presented his second report on 31st July 2019, partly with reference to inputs from the eminent persons tasked by member states, though without support from the United States, the United Kingdom, and South Africa. On 12 September, the report was forwarded by the Secretary General to the General Assembly President. His recommendations follow largely those of Justice Ottman, and another Swedish draft resolution, supported now by 128 member states, was adopted on 27th December 2019 without a vote, and extended the mandate of Justice Ottman by 2 more years. This period was extended by another year due to the COVID pandemic. In June 2022, Justice Ottman visited Sweden. He had discussions in the foreign ministry, but he also met relatives of those killed in Dola and paid tribute to Dag Hammarskjöld at his gravesite in Uppsala. On 26 July 2022, Judge Ottman presented his third report to the UN Secretary General, who forwarded it on 25th August to the member states. As Secretary General Guterres stressed, it presented significant new information, strengthening the suspicions that external influence caused the crash of the plane when approaching the airport at Dola. He regrets that despite the appeals since 2017, no new documents were made accessible by key member states. And he mentioned by name South Africa, the USA, and the UK. Sweden again submitted a draft resolution on 29 November, motivated on 12 December by Ambassador Anna-Karin Enneström, recommending another term for the eminent person. Supported by a new record number of 141 member states. Let me repeat, co-sponsored by 141 member states. It was adopted without a vote on 30th December 2022. Notably, neither the United Kingdom nor the United States of America have been in support of any of the draft resolutions so far. Allow me to conclude with a summary on domestic Swedish policy issues since then. The continued engagement of Sweden since the end of 2022 under a newly elected conservative government alliance suggests an ongoing commitment, leaving behind the initial reluctance, which only ended with the change in government in late 2014. The massive increase of co-sponsoring member states has certainly also a role to play when it comes to such continued engagement. Domestically, a new initiative was taken by Gudrun Brunegård, a member of the Christian Democrats in the Swedish parliament. She submitted an interpellation in mid-2020, seeking to correct the tendency in the initial Swedish findings of 1962, considering a pilot error as likely cause of the crash. This had created, beyond the loss of their closed ones, traumatic feelings of guilt for the families who also experienced social stigmatization. In July 2020, government confirmed that Sweden now accepts that there are reasons to suspect foul play and therefore has taken the necessary initiatives for a continued investigation by the United Nations. Beyond this important correction, through the then Foreign Minister Ann Linde, Brunegård constituted a four-member group in her name, including with former Archbishop K.G. Hammer, the Norwegian researcher Hans Christian Simonsen, and me, three former members of the initial enabling committee. It seeks to find the reasons for a shift in the Swedish investigations of 1961-62. The group introduced its initiative in a public event at the Swedish Parliament in December 2021. Judge Ottman recognized the initiative by a live transmitted audio-visual message to the audience. The initiative seeks to complement the international efforts by urging government to support a local truth commission investigating the reasons and motives for the Swedish Commission leaning towards the Rhodesian findings. In May 2023, the Brunegård Group, supported by co-signatures of four other members of parliament from the left, the center, the Green and the Moderate Party, totaling 5 parties of 8 in the Swedish parliament, in a letter to Foreign Minister Tobias Billström, requesting to support such investigations. While Billström, in his reply of July 2023, evaded a direct commitment, he conceded that it cannot be excluded that the final conclusions presented then may have been influenced by the political landscape of the time, guided by foreign affairs and national security considerations, sacrificing the effort to seek the truth. The demand remains to provide full and unlimited access to whichever classified documents remain in the state's possession. This might not only bring more light into the circumstances of the report drafted by the Swedish Commission then, but could even offer additional hitherto unknown information on what happened in this fateful night of September 17th to 18th, 1961. A demand we all share in whichever country we are. I would like to thank you all for this commitment.